Ladies and gentlemen, massive, massive buffs coming to the game, specifically to Amon more than any other character. Also, just a small change I did want to talk about. They added auto-clearing to the Borderlands for stale shaders on version update, preventing performance degradation. Not sure how that wasn't in there to begin with, but that should help some people. You're going to have to recache your shaders a few times here, but it will be better in theory. I'm also at Maurice's Black Market new location, just to give you guys that little piece of advice here at the beginning of the video before I get into the Amon buffs, because oh my goodness, it's like 50 plus things. It's insane. Every single build he has is probably stronger now. But here is Maurice's Black Market down here. You can just travel to the Someday Rise, come down. It's kind of near this drill site. I have not actually looked at it, so let's look what I have. Yours will be different. It's different for every single person, but still, you know where it is now. So I can get a Blockbuster, just a decent grenade, or I can get 7th Sense. I don't know what 7th Sense is, so I'm probably gonna get this. The bread and butter of what I actually want to get into, can't believe I just said that like a freaking loser, is the massive buffs that we're seeing across the skill tree. So I have it pulled up on the other screen. That's why I'm looking to the side. You know, a little couple things for Harlow, decent amount for Rafa actually, a lot of melee stuff. Decent stuff for Vex, but obviously I only care about Amon right now, so let's do that. Let's learn, let's read. So first up, Scourge. That is Blue Tree. Max Vengeance increased by 50%, making it able to absorb and deal more damage back, and the Forged Whip itself has a damage increase. In general, nice buff to both the shield and the whip itself. Blast Chill, this one gets a 45% buff. Molten Rebuke, where's that one? Down here, gets a 86% damage buff. That's insane. Eternal Winter, damage increased by 100%, double the damage of the Forge Wave. So it was previously only like 4K. Obviously, I'm not spec'd into this right now, so the numbers on screen as far as the total damage, like that's not going to be accurate for if you're building into it, but still worth saying. Storm Lance damage increased by 52%. I believe that's this right here. And Stormlance Detonation damage increased by 10%. Then we've got the Capstones for Vengeance. We've got Glacial Rapture here. 60-second cooldown instead of 70. That's nice. The whip damage increased by 16%, and the fissure damage increased by 41%. And then Wrathful Downfall, which is over here, the giant sword that comes down, strikes enemies, has a damage increase by 46%. All pretty nice. Passives here. Scorch Kairos deals 6% per level instead of 5. Battleborn right here is 4% per level instead of 3. Scar Tissue is 5% instead of 4. Warbreaker damage increased by 50%. Another big one. Winter's Kiss increase damage dealt by 10%, up from 8 per point. And Strike the Anvil deals 15 instead of 12. So across the board, almost every single point is up a few percentage points, and you'll see that that is pretty similar for the entire list of buffs here in this. So we move on to the Crucible. The axes, when you throw them, deal 12% more. The Twin Blade, this thing right here, I have the Capstone for Snowball, but the generic one increased by 10%. The Cooldown Restoration increased to 40% from 33. Ordnance Restoration increased to 40% from 33. Endless War damage taken increased from 20 from 15 per prime stack. That's this one right here. This is another great augment for bossing. You can prime enemies by throwing the axes at them, letting them stick. You can get up to 3, and then those stacks deal basically a damage buff. So at 3 full stacks, you're at 60% instead of 45%. So that's pretty nice. Hour of the Hammer right here, increased damage by 14%. Blade Tempest increased by 13%, and Blade Tempest Detonation also increased by 4%. So some nice ones there for the augments. For the Capstone, Snowballs increased 38%. Storm Surge is increased by 10, and the detonation damage there's impact damage and regular damage. Impact up by 10, regular up by 60, and then we got conflagration up by 100%. That fire trail you leave behind you, which I have not actually tried yet, way up, way up. For the passives, here's where the fun stuff begins, because ladies and gentlemen, I think Forge Drone build, a drone Zerker, as I am going to call it, can actually work here. Gathering Storm, this is elemental increase. It's at 3% per stack instead of 2. So a max is 15 per stack instead of only 10. Executioner crit is at 4% per stack or per level instead of 3. Destruction engine is 6 or 8 up from 6 for the detonation, and 6 up from 5 for the forge skill damage. Again, everything's just up by 1 or 2% here, and then the big things are up by 10, 20, 30, 50%, even 100 at times. Tempered Pyre right here, this is your flame axe, your flame drone, 19% increase. Tempered Ice Forge hammer, same thing. 18% damage increase. Masterwork, this is a generic Forge Drone damage increase in duration, up to 10 from 7. The increased duration is 8 instead of 5, so that's nice. Here's Tempered Lightning, same thing, 13%. Elemental Lightning Bolts from Lightning Rod are now 40% of damage dealt instead of 30, and that scales with each level. It stays at a 25% chance to happen, but when it does, it will hit a lot harder. Escalation, this is Forge Drone attack speed and movement speed. They're up to 5 and 5 each instead of 3 and 3 each, so that's huge. The drones will fly around more, they will attack faster, and they will do more damage. That's all there is to it. This is the next build I'm running. Hopefully I'll have that up in the next day or two. It's going to be nuts. I have no doubt in my mind it's going to be okay on UVH5, but we will see. We will see. Honed point, Forge drones now have a chance to crit, and that chance is at 5% per point instead of 4. They're saying heat exchange, but I think they're talking about freezer burn. It increases cryo and incendiary. When you do one, it buffs the other. Now 8% per point instead of 7. And we move on to Onslaughter, which I'm really excited to get into as well. You can see my character is ready with the fiery look, the freaking awesome Amon, man. And come on, it's on brand, dude. I gotta do a fire build here soon. In general, the shield regen is increased, the rocket punch damage is increased, the molten slam giant hammer attack damage is increased, and has a lower cooldown. Buff across the board on that one. For the augments, Fell Frost, which is down here. Where is it? There it is. Damage increased by 71, and Fulminating Fist right here, damage increased by 69. Nice. Capstones, Horror Cleave now has a 55-second cooldown instead of 65, so you'll get it more often. Damage increased by 11%, and the detonation damage increased by 18. Molten Rail right here, 70% cooldown instead of 80. You're using it more often. Storm Cutter as well, less cooldown, 65 instead of 75, and damage increased by also 65%. Huge. And into the passives, Heavy Plate. Give 7% per point instead of 6. Nice little buff. Wield of Storm here. Increased stats effect damage and everything by 7% instead of 6. Titanium Knuckles, which is melee and skill damage increase, are now 8 and 4 instead of 7 and 3. Harbinger is at 2% per stack instead of 1. I mean, even 2 is still pretty low, but it is a kill skill. Rack these up pretty quick for melee damage and max shield capacity for a duration. That's nice. Mortal Flare here, damage increased by 22%. And last but not least, Judgment increases melee damage from 10% up from 8 per point. So I know I'm rambling here, but the point is that it seems like almost 50% of his skills, passives, etc. have been buffed. If they're augments, they're getting pretty strong buffs. Capstone's getting pretty strong buffs, and these little ones that give a few percentage points here and there are all 1 or 2% stronger than they were previously. So what we'll see, hopefully, is that all the Amon builds will be a little bit stronger. Now, Infinite Ordnance Amon, not sure how much he actually benefited from this, which is why I felt fine doing the Infinite Ordnance build yesterday, a day before knowing that this patch was coming. I still feel like it was already really good. It stayed really good. Didn't benefit as much as some of these other builds. I know that the fire melee builds are going to be much stronger. In general, his Scourge with the shield and whip are going to be stronger, and we can finally, I think, be able to run the Forge drone builds that are really what I just find them super funny, watching the drones go around chopping people up. So I will be checking that out first, and that build will come hopefully in the next few days. So that's that little lunch break recording for you. If you like the video, it does help me out. Subscribe for more of your second favorite outfit. I'm your guy for Amon, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.